Hello and welcome. My name is Angie Holden and I'm the blogger behind the Country Chic Cottage. You might have heard that you can cut fabric on any Cricut machine, and yes, I've even cut fabric on my Cricut Joy machine. However, with the Cricut Joy, any of the Cricut Explore series, you will need to use an interfacing or bond that fabric in order to cut it. Now you can cut bonded fabric on a Maker or a Maker 3, however you can cut unbonded fabric on those machines as well. Now I do have a full video on cutting fabric if you want to see like the rotary blade, cutting fabric. I'll drop a link for that in the description below this video. However, this video is all about the type of interfacing you can use and which gets the best cuts. So there are so many brands and so many types of interfacing on the market that you can add to the back of your fabric to make it bonded fabric. We're going to talk about some of those varieties, test some of them out, then we're going to come out with a clear winner and a way for you to get great cuts with fabric on any Cricut machine. So first let's take a look at the supplies we're going to use. So we're going to use a variety of types of interfacing and I'm going to talk about those in just a second. Now when you cut the bonded fabric, you can use the light grip mat or the fabric mat. You'll need your fabric and then you will need the bonded fabric blade, and we'll talk about that in a second. Then you'll need some kind of pressing mat, even an ironing board would work. And then some type of heat source like Easy Press Mini, the regular Easy Press would work, an iron, just about anything to add your interfacing to your fabric. And then you'll need your Cricut machine. Now any Cricut machine will cut bonded fabric with the bonded fabric blade. If you have a Cricut Maker or Cricut Maker 3 that takes that rotary blade, I do recommend cutting even bonded fabric with the rotary blade. I just think it makes a cleaner cut. So let's take a look first of all at the types of interfacing that you can use. When it comes to interfacing, you can use just a fusible interfacing that has no kind of adhesive on the back. So this is only to make the fabric stiffer. So if you want to use it for something where you just need the fabric to be stiffer just to cut it, this would be what you need. If you want to apply it, say for like an applique, which is I feel like most of the applications that you would use this for, then you would want to use something like these heat and bond products. One of these is sewable and one is no sew. Just depends on what you want to do. When you make your applique, do you want to sew around it? Sewable version would be what you would want. If you want, just to press it on, not worry about sewing it, you just want to be done with it, choose a no sew version. Actually, any interfacing will work with the Cricut machine, and I am going to cut all three of these. But the type you pick sort of depends on your project and what you have in mind for what you want to do with it. So once again, to make it easy, if you don't need an adhesive on the back, so you just want to cut the fabric into shapes, something like this fusible interfacing will work great. These two are heat and bond, which means they have an adhesive on the back, and you need to pick the type of adhesive you want to use, sewable or no sew. So then decide which of these products you want to use. Now we're going to take a look at how to use interfacing in general, how to cut it, and then I'll show you cuts with each of these. This is the bonded fabric blade. So if you're using the Cricut Joy, it does not have a bonded fabric blade. You would just use the fine point blade. The bonded fabric blade is for the Explore series specifically. You can also use it in the Maker series. Now the bonded fabric blade is technically the fine point blade in a pink housing. So you can use a fine point blade as well. So just like when you're cutting fabric with scissors, you would want some scissors that are specifically for fabric. You don't want anyone to touch them. You don't want them to use them for paper. This is the same thing. So the bonded fabric blade is just the fine point blade in a pink housing so you can tell it apart from your other blades and not use it for anything except for fabric. For whatever interfacing product you're using, you'll want to follow all package directions. So what I'm going to do first, this is just my fabric, and I'm just going to iron it really quickly first, just to make sure I get out all the wrinkles. Then I've cut a piece of interfacing to a little smaller than the fabric. You can cut it to the exact size, but I just don't like risk getting it on my mat. Then we're going to put it on the back of the fabric. So the front of the fabric's face down. This is one of the heat and bonds. This is the heat and bond light. We're just going to add it to the back of the fabric. And for most interfacing, it literally only takes a few seconds to press it. Again, follow the directions on your package for whatever brand you're using. So we're just going to press this to the fabric. Then if you have an interfacing without an adhesive, like this version, that would be all you would do. Press it to the back and you're ready to cut. If you have one that has an adhesive, it has a paper backing on it. You can do one of two things. You can leave the paper backing on, but then your bonded fabric blade will be cutting through the paper layer. Remember we talked about we only want this for fabric, so it might be best for you to remove that paper layer. So what I like to do is to trim away first around the interfacing any excess of my fabric. So just trim those pieces away. Then once that's trimmed, you can peel away the paper liner. So what should happen is the paper liner should peel away, your interfacing should be left on your fabric, and you should feel the adhesive. Now this is a heat activated adhesive, so it should not be sticky at this point. And now your fabric is ready to cut. So I'm going to prepare all 3 of my samples and we'll talk about cutting those. All of these would basically be cut the same way. So with this interfacing that has this adhesive, you remember I peeled that paper backing off the back, I would put this face down on the mat and mirror any cuts, because you don't want this adhesive sticking to your mat. It could pull the adhesive off. I have had that happen before. So I'm just going to stick this to the mat, and a brayer comes in really handy. Now, if your fabric doesn't stick to this mat, you can use a green mat. You could use a purple mat. It does not matter. Just be sure that the fabric is down really well. Mirror your cuts and use the bonded fabric setting. I did end up using my green mat, it just wasn't stuck well enough for me. Pick the bonded fabric setting, and here I'm just cutting a heart with my bonded fabric blade. Each of the interfacing materials that I've went over cut similarly. I did want to note here that once your cut is done, before you unload the mat, you can lift the corner and make sure your material is cut all the way through. If it is, go ahead and unload your mat. If it's not, you can press the go button again to go over the same area once again. So here are all 3 of the materials cut, and let me show you how I was able to get this amazing clean cut on this piece. First of all, I cut one of the heat and bonds that has the adhesive on the back, and I peeled the paper back and cut it upside down. You might be able to see it's a very jagged edge. Now this is a sewable interfacing, but both of these cut basically the same if I cut them in this manner. This version is the interfacing that does not have an adhesive on the back, and it cut again with a very jagged edge. Now, I wanted to get a perfect clean cut. How was I able to do that? I was able to do that with this version because I cut it face up on the mat. It is one of the heat and bonds that has the adhesive on it, and I left the paper on it when I cut. So you can see that paper is left on there. Now this will dull your blade faster. However, the cut is amazing, and I can peel off. This is the no-sew version, I think, but I can peel this off now. I have that adhesive on the back, and I have an extremely clean cut all the way around the edges. So that's the way I personally cut fabric with an interfacing. I pick an interfacing that is a heat and bond that has an adhesive on the back, and I leave the paper on it while I cut, and then I remove the paper after the cut is complete. And it gets a very clean cut on any Cricut machine. So now you know my favorite way to cut fabric, bonded fabric, on any Cricut machine, and you can replicate these results. So I get these same results with any of the heat and bond materials. So because it has that paper backing, that's what makes the difference. So the paper backing, leaving that on there while it's cutting, makes a huge difference, makes the fabric more stiff, makes the Cricut machine cut it cleaner. So I find that's the way I prefer to cut fabric on my Cricut machine. Now, if you do not want to dull your blade, you can use one of the other options that I showed you. You will just have those jagged cuts. However, if you are going to sew around it or, use this in some kind of sewing project, the edges may be hidden anyway. You may not be as worried about them being jagged. If you're not, then by all means, use one of those other methods. That way you don't dull your blade as much. I don't find that it dulls my blade quickly to do the method that I've been using. However, I don't cut a ton of fabric. I just cut it occasionally for a project. So you might find that it does shorten the life of your blade. but those clean cuts for me are what I'm after for the projects that I'm working on. So most of the time, I'm going to be using a no-sew heat and bond interfacing. I'm going to cut this, I'm going to apply it with an iron, and that's it. That's all I want to do. That's the project. That's why I cut it, to get those crisp, clean edges so that I can use it for projects like that. So hopefully this gives you some options for interfacing when cutting bonded fabric with your Cricut machines. If you have any questions, drop down in the comment section, ask away. If you like this video, if it helped you, give us a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, head on over to our YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button. We have videos just like this one every single week, and trust me, you don't want to miss any of those. So thank you all so much for joining me, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.